So, whether you've liked the last 2 seasons or not, Star Trek Picard is coming back with its final season, Season 3, in only a few days' time. And before the season starts, I just want to talk about some ideas, some theories, some thoughts, and maybe even an emotion or two that I feel about Star Trek Picard Season 3. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, so let's get to it. So we're a few days out from what's been a pretty heavily marketed and hyped final season for Star Trek Picard, if you've been paying any attention at all to social media, especially Twitter. But before the fourth and final, I guess, because I'm counting All Good Things, Nemesis, and the fact that Picard's dead, so this is going to be the fourth time we have to say goodbye. I want to go over some thoughts and feelings of what might be going on, and this is all speculation, so if you like wild speculation, like and subscribe. So the trailer, I don't think gives away too much. I think it's been very heavily edited in terms of what's going on with the story and where things lie. For example, I was told from a very reliable source that the scene from I think it was the NYC comic trailer going back last year when Worf says he's a pacifist, that's from episode 6 or something like that. That's not from one of the early episodes. So I think the general overall tone and plot of what we're seeing is nowhere near complete. I think this is going to sort of unravel like an onion the more the stories go on. And I think there's probably going to be many story arcs in here as well for all the characters, because although it's called Star Trek Picard, they've got the TNG crew back for a reason. So yeah, they better make use of them. And while I don't expect everyone to get their own episode, I mean, Troy, why would you do that? Why? I expect that we're probably going to get quite a bit of backstory on what the gang's been up to. I know that some of this has already sort of been published online just to fill in the blanks between Nemesis and now. But yeah, we really need some deep character exploration of where these guys are compared to when we last seen them. So what have they been up to? What's happened to them? Have they changed? What's caused them to change? That kind of thing. And man, I really hope that they mention Worf's time on Deep Space Nine, because they never really addressed that in any of the Star Trek films. And he done a lot. Like, he got his hands really dirty, got married, and then he got widowed. So yeah, give Worf some deep exploration about what he's been up to, and how he maybe now muses on his life in Starfleet or his former life in Starfleet. I'd quite like to see that. But getting into the stuff from the trailer, and I mentioned this in my trailer review, I do think that there's going to be a sort of setup here where Riker and Picard take the USS Titan or steal it, exactly the same way that maybe Kirk done it in Star Trek 3 The Search for Spock. Because in the trailer, the captain, Liam Shaw, mentions that they're on there for an inspection, and if you notice the way that they're dressed, Riker's wearing a standard Starfleet uniform, at least for this time, but then in the later episodes, Shaw isn't in it, and Riker is, it looks as if he's still wearing a Starfleet uniform, but it's now a sort of different tone. It's like a leather jacket, sort of similar to the jacket that Picard used to wear in the later seasons of Star Trek with that swed thing. And also, there's a scene when LaForge seems to show up that might be editing where the voiceover or the dialogue doesn't fit the scene. But when Geordi appears on that screen, he seems really pissed off about what Picard and maybe Riker has been up to. So I think the initial scenes of the tour of the Titan is they're going to go on their little trip, maybe go back to Earth or go back to a starbase, whatever it is. Then something goes wrong, they get the call to action and they take the ship. So Shaw might not die, he might just be sort of chasing them throughout the season, and if that's the case, I can understand why they wouldn't put it in the trailer. It would also make sense because a lot of people that have seen the show are saying that fans are really going to like him in these episodes, so he's going to be in a few of them. And the fact that the actor Todd Stashwick and the character is getting all this praise suggests to me that he's going to be about for quite a while. But not too long, because all the pictures that we've seen, or the majority of them, seem to have Riker or Picard in the captain's chair. There's been a new one, or a new set of pictures that was released yesterday in which you see 7 of 9 in the captain's chair. So that even more backs up the theory that Shaw won't be around for too long, but I don't think he's going to die potentially straight away. So speaking of characters they need to put more effort into, Rafi, who, yeah, let's be honest, is pretty much one of the few characters crossing over from Star Trek Picard Season 1 and 2, because this season seems as if none of that matters, which I suppose if you've seen Star Trek Picard Season 2, you know, absolutely right, none of that matters. Why did the TNG crew and Picard need her? Most of the scenes that we've seen with Rafi, she's either on her own or somewhere with Worf, or she's just doing that sort of Jack Bauer solo rogue agent thing. But I just wonder how she's going to interact with the TNG crew, because she knew Picard at a different stage in his life when he was winding down, rather than when they knew him when he was at the sort of peak of his career and peak of his power. So she might have a different view on what Jean-Luc's capable of, and she might have a few views on what these older officers have done in the past. Is she going to have sort of hero worship or hero reverence for them? So the whole plot of Season 3, I mean, we don't really know what it is outside of this is Picard needing to get the TNG crew back together. But what for? What is the threat? We see one shot where there's a building, it appears on Earth to be destroyed. We've seen all the scenes of the Titan and Beverly's ship getting into the conflict with Vadic. But what does Vadic want? Even Worf's sort of generalisation of what's going on is, well, pretty general. There's some sort of threat out there. It could be coming for Starfleet. Why? What is the threat? Where is it coming from? And why might it be Starfleet? And then why might you think that it might not be Starfleet as well? I think this is very interesting and supports my theory that there's probably a bit more going on here with her. Or there might be another sort of big bad that's yet to be revealed. Because again, I think this show is going to sort of reveal things every 2 or 3 episodes. I don't think it's going to be like Picard Season 2, where it tries to have an oh-so-shocking ending every week. But yeah, it's just not clear, what does Vadic want and why is she so pissed off? Is it with Captain Picard or Admiral Picard? Is it with the whole TNG crew? Maybe that's the reason he's got to get them back together, is she's hunting them down or she's hunting their families down, because there is quite a lot of sort of family ties in this show. LaForge's daughter and things on there. In fact, LaForge's 2 daughters. We don't really see Riker's daughter or any mention of her, so probably not a great sign that if they bring her back, she's going to survive. But yeah, with Vadic, just what is going on? I want to know what your theories think on who she is and how she fits into all this, and who she might be and who the TNG cast might be to her. So let me know in the comments below. Now, let's go on to the big one. Is this guy Picard's son? I'm pretty confident that he is, although there's been a lot of theories about if he is, how this fits into the timeline, because he'd need to be at least somewhere between his 30s and his 40s. If he was born after the events of Nemesis, he wouldn't be old enough, or he wouldn't be as old as this guy looks. Not to say that he looks old, he looks absolutely great, but in the continuity of TNG and all the films, his age range wouldn't match what we would expect someone to be if they were born after Nemesis, or even born around that time. But I want to drop a theory on this one, and it's a big one, because we know a little bit of the history of Picard and Beverly Crusher. There was always a will they, won't they thing in TNG. They never got into sort of the relationship with Jack, Beverly and Picard in a flashback. I wish they had. I would love to have seen that. But think about this, people. Beverly Crusher wasn't on the Enterprise for an entire season. So she was back on Earth at Starfleet Medical. At least that's what we were told. But if you sort of work out canonically when this would have been. So canonically, this theory does make sense, because Beverly left the Enterprise in the year 2365. Star Trek Picard Season 3 is set about 18 months after Season 2. That means it's around the year 2401. So if you take those two figures, put them together, there's a 36-year difference. So that means that this guy's age fits perfectly with when Beverly could have been pregnant and left the Enterprise, had the baby, then came back on board. The only thing they would have to explain, really, or the only two things, is when did Beverly and Picard hook up, And why did Beverly not tell Picard that they had a child on Earth or somewhere out there? I can understand why they didn't tell him, because why would you want Wesley Crusher as your brother? Yeah, I think that this is an absolutely solid theory that this guy is Picard's son. He could be a clone or something else. I could be wrong. We're going to have to wait and see. But just the maths on that made me think it's true.
This is the power of math, people!
So let's move on to Brett Spiner. And there's no greater character arc in Star Trek Picard that proves he didn't have a plan than Data. Because they killed him off and then they decided to bring Brett Spiner back for 2 more seasons, which doesn't really make sense. But obviously he's shown up as Lore in Star Trek Picard Season 3. And yet, what do they need Lore for? Why has he been put back together? How long has he been put back together? And what is he up to? It seems that he's wearing a Starfleet uniform, and I think that what's going on with Lore here, events of Picard Season 1, I suspect Lore is somehow involved with that planet of androids, whether he's an ambassador, a governor, or a leader. And that's probably the reason that they've put him back together. Need him though? I think it's going to be something along the lines of he's got some sort of cloned or shared memory of Data. Or maybe they're going to try and download Data's mind into Lore. But yeah, I think this is one of the weaker parts, and again proves that they never had a long-term plan for this show. The fact that they killed Data off and then keep bringing the actor back that plays him. I also think we're probably going to get to see a few familiar faces that haven't been advertised. The big holdout for me, if they're going to do a final season of TNG, which pretty much what this is, it's got to be Miles O'Brien. Even if he just appears in a sort of comm message video or something like that, or he's the guy that just shows up at the Titan to beam them on board for old time's sake. I think it'd be great to see Colm Meaney back in the role. The guy looks like he could still play O'Brien, no problem at all. And it would fill in another blank because we don't know what O'Brien's been up to the last 20 years or so since Deep Space Nine. The showrunner Telem Batalis has hinted that there might be some crew members or a crew member from Voyager showing up. Fan-wise, I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of people would think it'd be, or at least hope it would be Harry Kim, because yeah, we need some Harry Kim stuff. He's not popped up in Lower Decks or Prodigy yet. And I'm kind of going to be sad if Kim does pop up here, because if he's just in like a quick episode or a quick scene, they're not really going to get a chance to do the character justice and give him the sort of redemption arc that a lot of fans, including myself, think that he deserves. I'd much rather that he showed up as a sort of recurring character in a few episodes or a long-term arc in Prodigy. But these are just some of my thoughts and theories about what's going to go on over the season and in the first episode of Star Trek Picard. But what do you guys think? I want to know what your theories are. Is this guy Picard's son? Who's going to die? What characters are they going to bring back? And where is all this going? Let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. As always, my name's Al, thanks for watching, and my episode 1 review of Star Trek Picard is going to drop soon, so like and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss it.